All right. Light is bright. This is our second take on this because we had a situation. I don't know how much of what we got and how much of another we didn't. So, Michael Grubb, Evolved Ministry.
Daniel Atlas.
We're having to speak louder than usual because there's a car running in the background and there's water running in the background of that background. So, here's the deal. A few years ago, I take Daniel out. We're going to go out and do a night of training. Fun night of training. And so, we drive 20 minutes out to our normal place that we call the Sanctuary, which is called Cut Right out at Lake Monroe. And so, we go ahead and go out there and get in the parking lot. And I notice there's a lot more cars there than normally are there, especially for that particular time of night, which was about 2 or 3 in the morning, something like that. And so we walk back to the area that we normally do, which is just north of the parking lot, and I see lined up, basically on the shoreline, a whole bunch of lit candles. And then once we look a little bit further, we see like 5 guys in hoods. Basically, they're wearing robes and hoods. And then another 10 or 15 guys, they're just wearing normal robed attire, but without the hoods, okay? So, first thought in my head was, is this some sort of a stupid satanic ritual or some sort of like witchcraft thing going on here? And I give it some thought at first, and then I was just like, I'm just going to find out what's going on here, right? So I walk up to the first guy, which I guess was the main guy in charge. And I was like, what the hell are you guys doing here? And so he turns around and he looks at me. He looks at me like, A, you just startled the crap out of me. B, I just peed my pants. His eyes are like this big around, okay? And C, like, what comes next? What comes next after this? And so that particular night, just so you know, I used to do work as a park patrolman for the city of Bloomington. So I still had on all of my attire and I looked rather official, okay? And of course, wear the hat and everything, and people just, they come up to their own conclusions. Well, this kid thought that I was probably a cop or something like that, and the first words out of his mouth are, "Sir, I'm sorry, sir." And he basically says, we're doing a hazing ritual for a fraternity. I promise we won't be long. We just have to get this done. And so this guy, I can tell, is like, he's really out of his element. He's scared to death. He's the one putting on this ritual, so it's on him if it fails, right? And I noticed that the other guys, the pledges, the hazies or whatever, they're in a state of confusion because they don't know what's going on. So I just interrupted their little dark ceremony where they're supposed to be scaring the crap out of their pledges. And now I have scared the crap out of the people who are supposed to be scaring the crap out of the pledges. So at this point, the guy looks at me and he begs me, basically, to let them continue so that they can finish the hazing ritual and that they will leave as soon as they possibly can. Because I'm thinking that he was thinking that, like I said, I look halfway official, that I was going to haul them in, bust them, smack them around, haul them in, or whatever. Now, I can only imagine what the pledges were thinking at this particular point, because if you think of it from their perspective, and I've thought about this before, here they are, they're out there, they don't know what's going to happen to them. They're scared crapless. They've got 5 guys, hooded robes, they don't know which one's which. And they're thinking to themselves, I have to do whatever it takes to please this situation so I can get into the fraternity. And so they've got a mock satanic ritual going on. Some dude shows up looking like me with a hat on They're thinking I'm some sort of a cop. Like I said, I just got off work from being a park patrolman, so I had that kind of look to me. I was also pretty miffed given the fact that these people weren't supposed to be there. They were in our particular spot where we do what we're doing. And if you look at it from the perspective of the pledges, not the guys that were putting on the whole thing, but from the perspective of the pledges, at this particular point, I guarantee you they were crapping their pants. And this whole ritual thing that we just invaded basically got crapped on. Okay, they just know that all of a sudden this very, very dark ceremony with robes, hoods, candles, and satanic overtones just got interrupted by some unknown character. What did it look like from your end?
Pretty silly. I mean, I've never walked upon anything like that, but from my perspective of that thing, it's people do what they do, but it's silly. And so I was just curious what was happening. I mean, I know things like that happen with, there's like initiations or whatever with fraternities. Never seen them. Don't care to see them, but pretty silly.
All new to me. I mean, not to say, I've definitely had my run-ins with witches, Wiccans, those self-professed Satanists before. Like, we're talking like the real ones. But this whole cartoonish event was new to me. It was a bit different. And so, this poor kid now, at this point, we decided, after he basically outright begged me, we decided to go ahead and leave them to what they were going to do to their own devices. And what we did was we went and picked up a bunch of wood. Because we were going to do our fire later on. And see, that was one of the things, is this whole thing actually bothered me, because I thought that they were actually doing a real ritual upon the same land that we go and practice on, which I was not about to have. Because if I thought it was a real, actual satanic ritual, believe me when I say I would have chased them all out of there one by one, if need be. But we found out that it was just a silly little hazing ritual for a fraternity, for the rushies or the pledges. So we went on, grabbed all of our wood, we gathered everything, put it together, and once they were finished, they promptly scuttled out of there like little rats. And so, from this whole thing where they're pledging their souls to their fraternity, to all of a sudden, here's this unknown character who walks in looking like the redneck that I am. There's not much I can do about that. Not much I can do about the way that I talk. But I guess I have that kind of a presence. Either way, and if you think about it this too, if you look at it from the perspective of the guys who were actually putting this whole thing on, and their whole job was to scare the crap out of the pledges, ooh, big time failure. Big failure. Nonetheless, that's another one of our true stories. This may be 11 or it may be 12, because I've got another one that's in the works to come. And even though this wasn't a metaphysical one, this borders on kind of that line, given what we walked in and saw. But I must tell you, it was a pleasure watching the frat boys nearly urinate themselves in front of me during one of their hazing rituals. Anyway, Michael Grubb, Evolve Ministry, Daniel Atlas,